Cadet Elena Martinez stepped off the transport shuttle with a bright smile that could have powered a small space station. Her regulation uniform was perfectly pressed, her dark hair neatly braided, and she carried herself with the kind of cheerful energy that made hardened soldiers either want to protect her or run for cover. The other cadets shuffled past her with the tired expressions of people who had seen too much, but Elena practically bounced on her toes as she took in the sight of forward operating Base Titan. "Would you look at that architecture?" she said to no one in particular, pointing at the massive defensive walls that surrounded the base. "The engineering must be incredible. I read that they can withstand a direct hit from a Class 7 plasma cannon." Sergeant Rex Morrison watched the new arrival from his position near the landing pad. At 43, he had been through enough deployments to spot trouble from a kilometer away. Sweet-natured cadets usually meant one of two things. They were about to get everyone killed through incompetence, or they were hiding something dark enough to give him nightmares. Either way, Command had specifically requested that Cadet Martinez be assigned to his squad, and when Command made specific requests, smart sergeants asked no questions. "Martinez," Rex called out, his voice cutting through the noise of landing shuttles and moving equipment. "Over here." Elena hurried over with quick, light steps. Up close, Rex could see she was younger than most of the soldiers on base. Probably no more than 22. Her brown eyes sparkled with genuine enthusiasm. And when she saluted, it was picture perfect. Cadet Elena Martinez reporting for duty. "Sergeant," she said with a voice that belonged in a recruitment video rather than a war zone. "At ease, cadet. Welcome to the edge of civilized space." Rex studied her face for any sign of the darkness he expected to find, but saw only excitement and determination. "You'll be bunking with Bravo Squad. We're a recon unit, which means long patrols, minimal backup, and situations that can go bad real quick. Think you can handle that?" "Absolutely, Sergeant. I've been looking forward to field work since I enlisted." Elena shifted her gear bag to her other shoulder. "I brought my grandmother's cookies for the squad. She always said good food builds good teams." Rex blinked. In 15 years of military service, no one had ever mentioned grandmother's cookies during their first briefing. "Right. Well, let's get you settled in and meet the team." The barracks were a series of connected modules that had seen better decades. Rex led Elena through corridors lined with blast-resistant walls and emergency bulkheads. Other soldiers moved through the halls with the efficient, quiet movement of people who knew that loud noises could attract unwanted attention from the things that lived in the darkness between the stars. "Here's your home for the next 6 months, Rex said, stopping at a door marked Bravo Squad. He pressed his palm to the scanner, and the door slid open with a soft hiss. Inside, 4 soldiers looked up from their activities. Corporal James "Tank" Anderson was cleaning his rifle, a massive weapon that looked like it could punch holes through starship hulls. Private Lisa Chen was studying star charts on her tablet, her eyes scanning patrol routes with the focus of someone whose life depended on knowing every rock and crater in the area. Private Marcus Webb sat cross-legged on his bunk, meditating with the stillness of a monk, while Corporal Sarah "Doc" Williams organized medical supplies with the precision of a surgeon preparing for a complex operation. "Everyone, meet Cadet Martinez. She'll be our 5th for the foreseeable future." Rex gestured to each soldier in turn. "Tank handles our heavy weapons and demolitions. Chen is our navigator and communications specialist. Webb is our scout and sniper. Doc keeps us alive when things go sideways." Elena gave another perfect salute. "Honored to serve with you all. I brought cookies." The room fell silent. Tank stopped cleaning his rifle. Chen looked up from her charts. Webb opened one eye from his meditation. Doc paused with a bandage. Halfway to a storage compartment. "Cookies?" Tank asked, his voice carrying the kind of bewilderment usually reserved for discovering new forms of alien life. "Chocolate chip," Elena said proudly, pulling a sealed container from her gear bag. "My grandmother's recipe. She was a cook in the Merchant Marine before she retired. The secret is using real vanilla extract instead of the synthetic stuff." Doc slowly set down her medical supplies and approached the container like it might explode. "When you say cookies, I mean actual, homemade, fresh-baked cookies. Elena popped open the container, and the smell of chocolate and vanilla filled the air. I made them during our last shore leave. The preservation packaging should have kept them fresh. Chen stood up so fast she nearly knocked over her tablet. Are those real chocolate chips? Real Earth chocolate, Elena confirmed. My grandmother has connections with a trader who runs supplies between the core worlds and the frontier. Cost me 2 months' pay, but I wanted to make a good impression. The transformation in the room was immediate and dramatic. Tank set down his rifle and approached the cookies with the reverence usually reserved for religious artifacts. Webb abandoned his meditation entirely. Doc pulled out a field scanner and began testing the cookies for toxins, contamination, and other hazards, but Rex could see her hands shaking slightly with anticipation. These scan clean, Doc announced after a moment. No harmful substances detected. They're actually just cookies. Elena laughed, a sound like wind chimes in a gentle breeze. Of course they're just cookies. What else would they be? Each squad member took a cookie with careful, deliberate movements. Rex watched as hardened soldiers who had faced alien horrors and survived impossible odds bit into homemade cookies with expressions of pure bliss. Tank actually made a noise that might have been a whimper. Chen closed her eyes and smiled for the first time since Rex had known her. Webb nodded approvingly and took a second cookie. Doc mumbled something about the biochemical effects of real sugar on morale and stress levels. Martinez, Rex said slowly. Where exactly did you train before this assignment? Academy Station 7. Elena replied promptly. Standard 4-year program. Specialized in tactical operations and alien contact protocols. I graduated 3rd in my class. Rex knew Academy Station 7. It was a good school, but nothing special. It produced competent soldiers, not miracle workers who could transform squad dynamics with baked goods. And, your previous experience? This is my first field assignment, Sergeant. I'm excited to put my training to use. That evening, Rex found himself in the base commander's office, staring across a metal desk at Colonel Sarah Martinez. No relation to Elena, despite the shared surname. The colonel was a stern woman in her 50s who had earned her rank through 30 years of keeping humanity alive in hostile space. You have questions about Cadet Martinez, the colonel said. It wasn't a question. She's unusual, Rex replied carefully. Sweet kid. Seems competent. But command doesn't usually make specific assignment requests for fresh academy graduates. And she brought cookies. Actual, homemade cookies. Colonel Martinez leaned back in her chair. What do you know about the Kepler 7 incident? Rex felt a chill run down his spine. Classified above my pay grade, ma'am. I know there was some kind of first contact situation that went bad. Heavy casualties. The official reports are mostly redacted. 18 months ago, a deep space exploration vessel made contact with a previously unknown alien species. The initial contact seemed friendly. The aliens invited a diplomatic team aboard their ship for negotiations. The colonel paused, choosing her words carefully. Something went wrong. The aliens turned hostile. Of the 43 humans aboard that ship, only one made it back to tell the story. One survivor out of 43, Rex repeated. That's impossible. The report said it was a diplomatic mission. Minimal security detail. The survivor was listed as a junior xenobiologist. 20 years old, fresh out of university, no combat training. Colonel Martinez pulled up a file on her computer screen. She was described by her colleagues as sweet-natured, enthusiastic about alien cultures, and completely harmless. Rex felt pieces clicking into place in his mind, but the picture they formed didn't make sense. Colonel, are you telling me? I'm telling you that Cadet Elena Martinez has a combat record that's classified at the highest levels. I'm telling you that when she entered the academy after the Kepler 7 incident, her instructors were specifically ordered not to push her too hard in combat training. I'm telling you that there are people in command who think putting her on the front lines is either the best idea we've ever had or the worst mistake in military history. Rex stared at the colonel. What happened on that alien ship? That's classified. Colonel Martinez closed the file on her screen. What I can tell you is that your new cadet has been specifically requested for an upcoming mission. Something big is moving in the Epsilon sector. Long-range scouts have detected alien vessels of unknown configuration. Command wants Bravo Squad to investigate. And they want Martinez with us. They want Martinez with you. The colonel's expression was grave. Sergeant, I've read the classified reports from Kepler-7. I've seen the debriefs, the psychological evaluations, the technical analysis. If even half of what I've read is true, that sweet-natured girl who brought cookies to your barracks is the most dangerous human being in this sector of space. Rex left the colonel's office with more questions than answers. He walked through the base corridors, past off-duty soldiers playing cards and watching entertainment feeds from Earth, past maintenance crews working on equipment that might be all that stood between humanity and extinction. The cheerful sound of laughter drifted from the direction of his squad's barracks. He found Elena sitting on her bunk, showing Tank how to properly fold origami cranes while Chen and Webb watched in fascination. Doc was taking notes on the precise angles needed for each fold, approaching the art form with the same analytical mindset she brought to battlefield medicine. The key is to be patient with the paper, Elena was saying, her fingers moving with surprising dexterity as she created perfect creases. If you rush, you'll tear it. But if you take your time and listen to how the paper wants to fold, you can create something beautiful. How do you know how paper wants to fold? Tank asked, struggling with his own crane. Elena smiled. The same bright expression she had worn when stepping off the transport shuttle. Everything has its natural state, Tank. You just have to pay attention and find it. Rex watched her work, seeing something new in the precise movements of her hands. The focused attention she gave to every fold. There was a stillness to her movements, a sense of controlled power that he hadn't noticed before. When she finished her crane, she held it up to the light, and for just a moment, Rex thought he saw something else in her eyes, something that belonged to someone who had seen things that no 22-year-old should ever see. That's beautiful, Doc said, reaching out to touch the paper crane. How did you learn to do this? My grandmother taught me, Elena replied, but there was a slight hesitation in her voice, as if she were remembering something she wished she could forget. She said it was important to know how to create beautiful things, especially when you've seen too much ugliness in the world. The next morning, Rex gathered his squad for their first training exercise with their new member. They met in the base's Combat Simulation Center, a room filled with holographic projectors and sensor arrays that could recreate any battlefield scenario from the archives. Today we're running a standard first contact scenario, Rex announced, bringing up a simulated alien environment on the projectors. We've detected unknown technology signatures on an uncharted planet. Our job is to investigate, make peaceful contact if possible, and report back to base. Elena raised her hand. What kind of aliens are we likely to encounter? Unknown species, unknown capabilities, Rex replied, watching her reaction carefully. Could be friendly traders. Could be hostile warriors. Could be something we've never seen before. That's why we go in ready for anything. The simulation began with the squad advancing through a forest of crystalline trees under an orange sky. Elena took point position as they had practiced, moving with the quiet confidence of someone who belonged in the wilderness. She called out hazards and landmarks with perfect military precision. But Rex noticed that she kept glancing at the tree line with the nervous attention of someone expecting trouble. They were 15 minutes into the simulation when the aliens appeared. The holographic creatures were roughly humanoid but covered in chitinous armor that gleamed like polished metal. They moved with insectoid jerks and twitches, and their weapons were organic-looking things that pulsed with bioluminescent energy. Contact front, Chen called out, raising her rifle. Multiple hostiles. Unknown weapon configuration. Elena's reaction was immediate and startling. Her cheerful demeanor vanished like a switch had been thrown. Her body language shifted from friendly cadet to something altogether more dangerous. She raised her weapon with movements that were too fast, too precise, too practiced for someone fresh out of the academy. Target priorities, she called out in a voice that had gone cold and clinical. Leader class organism at grid reference 4 to 7. Secondary targets flanking left and right. Weapons show bioelectric discharge patterns consistent with neural disruptors. Rex stared at her. Bioelectric discharge patterns? Neural disruptors? Those weren't terms taught in basic academy training. Those were specialist knowledge, the kind of information you learned from direct combat experience with advanced alien technology. The simulated combat lasted 30 seconds. Elena moved through the holographic battlefield like she had been born to it. Her weapon finding targets with mechanical precision. She called out tactical information that helped the squad coordinate their fire, but her own shooting was something beyond military training. It was art. When the last simulated alien fell, Elena stood among the holographic bodies with her rifle still raised, sweeping for additional threats, with the paranoid vigilance of someone who had learned that aliens could get back up when you thought they were dead. For a moment, the sweet-natured cadet was gone completely, replaced by something that belonged in classified reports and nightmare scenarios. Then she blinked, and the moment passed. The cheerful smile returned to her face, and she lowered her weapon with a slightly embarrassed laugh. "Sorry," she said, sounding like herself again. "I guess I got a little carried away." The tactical scenarios at the academy were pretty intense. Rex looked at the scoring display. Elena's accuracy rating was 98%. Her target identification speed was off the charts. Her tactical awareness scores were the highest Rex had ever seen from anyone below the rank of major. "Academy training," he said slowly. "Right." That night, Rex sat in his quarters and stared at a blank message screen. He wanted to send a request to command for Elena's full service record. But something told him that request would be denied. He wanted to ask her directly about Kepler-7, but something told him she wouldn't answer. He wanted to transfer her to another squad, but something told him that transfer wouldn't be approved. Instead, he found himself thinking about the way she had moved during the simulation. There had been something familiar about her combat style, something that reminded him of the veterans he had known who had seen too much action in too short a time. She fought like someone who had learned that hesitation meant death, that mercy was a luxury you couldn't afford when facing enemies that didn't share your concept of surrender. She fought like someone who had killed before, and killed well. A soft chime indicated an incoming message from command. Rex opened it and found new orders for Bravo Squad. They were being deployed to the Epsilon sector in 48 hours. Their mission was to investigate alien activity on a planet designated Echo 7. The mission parameters were classified. The threat assessment was classified. Even the expected duration of the mission was classified. What wasn't classified was the priority level, Alpha 1. The highest possible rating, reserved for missions that could affect the survival of human civilization. At the bottom of the message was a personal note from Colonel Martinez. "Sergeant Morrison, take care of our girl. She's been through enough." Rex closed the message and looked out his window at the stars. Somewhere out there, in the darkness between the worlds, something was waiting for them, something dangerous enough to require the attention of Bravo Squad and the special skills of a sweet-natured cadet who brought cookies and folded origami cranes and had somehow survived something that killed 42 other people. Tomorrow, they would leave forward operating base Titan behind and head into the unknown. Rex just hoped that when they found whatever was waiting for them in the Epsilon sector, Elena Martinez would be the same cheerful young woman who had stepped off the transport shuttle with a bright smile and a container full of grandmother's cookies. Because if she wasn't, if the classified reports were true, and the sweet-natured facade was hiding something darker, Rex wasn't sure whether they would be bringing back a hero or a weapon, and he was beginning to suspect that in the cold equations of interstellar warfare, there might not be a difference. The transport ship times vigilant dawn times cut through hyperspace toward the Epsilon sector like a bullet through dark water. Elena sat in the passenger compartment with the rest of Bravo Squad, her hands busy with another origami project, while Tank tried unsuccessfully to learn the complex folds she made look effortless. "So you fold this corner back then?" Tank muttered, wrestling with a piece of recycled packaging material that was supposed to become a dragon. "Gently," Elena reminded him, not looking up from her own work. "The paper will tell you when you're pushing too hard." Rex watched the scene with growing unease. 3 days into their journey, Elena remained the same cheerful, helpful person she had been at base. She shared her ration supplements, helped with equipment maintenance, and even convinced Doc to teach everyone basic field medicine. But there were moments when the mask slipped, just for an instant. And Rex caught glimpses of something else underneath, like the way she always sat with her back to a wall and facing the exits, like how she kept track of everyone's location with quick, unconscious glances, like the fact that she slept with a combat knife under her pillow, and Rex was certain she had noticed him noticing. "Sergeant," Chen called out from the navigation station. "We're approaching the drop zone. ETA to Echo 7 is 47 minutes. Rex stood and moved to the viewport. Echo 7 hung in space ahead of them, a world of blue oceans and green continents that looked deceptively peaceful from orbit. According to their briefing, the planet had been uninhabited when first surveyed 5 years ago. Now, energy signatures and artificial structures had appeared on the surface, suggesting someone had moved in during the interim. "Beautiful," Elena said, appearing beside him with that silent grace he was learning to recognize. "It looks just like Earth from this distance." "Looks can be deceiving," Rex replied, studying her profile as she gazed at the planet below. "Command thinks whoever's down there might not be friendly." Elena's expression didn't change, but Rex noticed her hands had stopped moving. The half-finished origami crane remained perfectly still in her fingers. "What kind of not friendly are we talking about?" "Our finger by one. Unknown. Could be pirates. Could be an illegal mining operation. Could be." Rex paused, watching her reaction. "Could be aliens." For just a moment, something flickered across Elena's face, a tightness around her eyes, a barely perceptible tension in her jaw. Then it was gone, replaced by her usual bright smile. "Well, whatever it is, I'm sure we can handle it," she said, returning to her origami with steady hands. "Bravo Squad seems pretty capable." 30 minutes later, they were strapped into drop pods, plummeting through Echo 7's atmosphere toward the landing zone. Elena's pod was directly to Rex's left, and through the small viewport, he could see her face illuminated by the glow of atmospheric entry. She looked calm, almost peaceful, but her lips were moving in what might have been a prayer or a countdown. The pods hit the surface with bone-jarring impacts, their retro rockets firing to cushion the landing. Rex's pod cracked open with a hiss of equalizing pressure, and he emerged into a forest that looked like something from Earth's ancient past. Massive trees stretched toward a canopy so thick that only scattered beams of sunlight reached the forest floor. The air smelled of earth and growing things, with an underlying scent that might have been ozone or something more exotic. "Sound off," Rex commanded into his comm unit as he checked his equipment. "Tank here, all green. Chen reporting, navigation systems online. Web checking in, no immediate threats detected. Doc present and accounted for. Elena here." The last voice was as cheerful as ever. "This place is gorgeous. I count at least 6 different species of flowering plants, just in my immediate area." Rex shook his head and began moving toward the rendezvous point. Elena's enthusiasm for alien botany was probably genuine, but her complete lack of nervousness about their first combat deployment was becoming harder to explain away. They regrouped in a clearing marked by standing stones that definitely weren't natural. The stones were black and smooth, carved with symbols that hurt to look at directly. They hummed with a low-frequency vibration that seemed to come from deep underground. "These weren't in the orbital survey," Chen said, running her scanner over the nearest stone. "I'm reading massive energy emissions from below the surface. Whatever these things are connected to, it's big." Elena approached one of the stones with the cautious interest of a scientist encountering a new species. She didn't touch it, but Rex noticed she moved around it in a specific pattern, keeping her body between the stone and the rest of the squad. "The symbols are familiar," she said quietly. "Not the specific markings, but the style, the way they're arranged." "Familiar how?" Rex asked. Elena's bright smile flickered for just a moment. "From my xenoarchaeology classes at the academy, we studied symbolic systems from various alien cultures." She looked at the stones again, and Rex saw something that looked like recognition in her eyes. "Though I can't quite place these specific markings. Webb emerged from the tree line, moving with the silent precision of a practiced scout. "Found something you need to see," he said, jerking his head toward the forest. "About 2 kilometers north. Whatever's here, it's not small." They moved through the forest in tactical formation, with Webb on point, Elena and Tank flanking, and Chen and Doc bringing up the rear. Rex stayed in the center, coordinating movement and watching for threats. The deeper they went into the woods, the more wrong everything felt. The trees were too uniform, the undergrowth too carefully arranged. It was as if the entire forest had been designed rather than grown. "Contact," Webb whispered into the comm. "Large structure ahead. Artificial construction. Multiple heat signatures." They crept to the edge of a clearing and found themselves looking at something that definitely hadn't been in the orbital surveys. A complex of buildings rose from the forest floor like geometric tumors, all sharp angles and impossible curves that seemed to bend space around them. The walls were the same black material as the standing stones, and they pulsed with the same uncomfortable energy. "That's not human architecture," Doc whispered. "No," Elena said, and her voice had gone very quiet. "It's not." Rex looked at her sharply. She was staring at the alien buildings with an expression he had never seen before. Not fear, not confusion, but something that looked like recognition mixed with something darker, something that looked like anticipation. "Martinez," he said carefully. "You know what this is?" Elena's head turned toward him with mechanical precision. For a moment, her eyes were completely empty of the warmth and cheerfulness he had come to expect. They were the eyes of someone who had seen horrors beyond imagination and learned to function anyway. Then she blinked, and the sweet-natured cadet was back. "Sorry, Sergeant. Just trying to remember where I've seen similar architecture, maybe in one of my textbooks." But Rex knew she was lying. The way she held herself, the way she scanned the alien structure, the way her hand rested near her weapon. These weren't the reactions of someone trying to remember a textbook. These were the reactions of someone who had been here before, or somewhere very much like it. Chen's scanner chirped softly. "I'm reading life signs. Multiple contacts. Moving in coordinated patterns. Whatever's in there, it's intelligent and organized." "Weapons check," Rex ordered. "We go in quiet, gather intelligence, and report back." "This is reconnaissance only." They moved into the alien complex through what appeared to be a main entrance, though the proportions were wrong for human use. The doorway was too wide and not quite tall enough, forcing them to duck slightly as they passed through. Inside, the walls glowed with phosphorescent patterns that shifted and flowed like living things. Elena moved through the alien corridors with disturbing familiarity. She seemed to know which passages would lead forward and which would dead end. When they reached intersections, she would pause and tilt her head slightly, as if listening to something the rest of them couldn't hear. "This way," she would say, pointing down a corridor. "The central chamber should be through here." Rex followed her lead, but each correct guess made him more uneasy. How could someone fresh out of the academy navigate an alien structure with such confidence? They emerged into a vast, central chamber, filled with equipment that belonged in a nightmare. Organic-looking machines pulsed with bioluminescent energy, connected by what looked like arteries and nerve clusters. In the center of the room, a group of creatures worked with focused intensity on something that might have been a weapon or a communication device. The aliens were roughly humanoid but clearly not human. Their skin was gray and mottled, their limbs too long and jointed in the wrong places. They moved with the coordination of a hive mind, each individual perfectly synchronized with the others. "Oh no," Elena whispered, and Rex heard something like despair in her voice. "They're here." "You know these things?" Rex asked, but Elena was already moving. She raised her weapon with inhuman speed and opened fire before any of the aliens had noticed their presence. Her shots were precisely placed, targeting what appeared to be nerve clusters and joint connections. The aliens shrieked with voices like tearing metal and turned toward them with movements too fast for creatures of their size. "Skithari," Elena shouted, her voice cutting through the alien screams. "Neural cluster behind the third joint. Target the queen form first." Rex stared at her as she moved through the alien chamber like a dancer, her weapon finding targets with impossible accuracy. Skithari, neural clusters, queen forms, these weren't terms from academy training. These were the specialized knowledge of someone who had fought these creatures before and learned their weaknesses through bitter experience. Tank opened up with his heavy weapon, filling the chamber with thunderous noise and explosive light. The aliens scattered, seeking cover behind their organic machines, but Elena tracked them with the predatory focus of an apex predator. "Left flank, 2 warriors coming around the bioprocessor," she called out. "Chen, target the communication node. The pulsing red cluster near the ceiling. Doc, watch for paralysis spores when they get desperate." The battle was chaos, but Elena moved through it with supernatural calm. She seemed to know where each alien would move before they did it. When one of the creatures tried to flank around Tank's position, Elena was already there, putting 3 rounds into its center mass with mechanical precision. When another attempted to activate what looked like an alarm system, Elena's shot took off its primary manipulator appendage before it could complete the motion. Webb added his sniper's accuracy to the fight, his rifle cracking with measured shots that found targets Rex couldn't even see. Doc kept them all supplied with ammunition and medical support, while Chen provided tactical coordination from behind portable cover. But it was Elena who dominated the battlefield. She moved like someone who had been born to fight these creatures, someone who understood them on an instinctual level that went beyond training or experience. She fought like someone with a personal grudge. The last alien fell after 3 minutes of combat that felt like 3 hours. Elena stood among the bodies, her weapon still raised, sweeping for additional threats with paranoid vigilance. Her cheerful demeanor was completely gone, replaced by something cold and professional, and absolutely terrifying. "Clear," she announced in a voice that belonged to a veteran of 100 battles. All contacts neutralized. Rex lowered his own weapon and stared at her. "Martinez, what the hell just happened?" Elena looked at him. And for a moment, he saw through the mask completely. The sweet-natured cadet was gone, replaced by someone who had killed before and would kill again without hesitation. Someone who had seen things that would break most people and had learned to function anyway. Then she seemed to remember herself, and the bright smile returned like a light being turned on. "Sorry, Sergeant. I guess my tactical training kicked in." These aliens seemed similar to some case studies we covered in Academy. "Case studies," Rex repeated flatly. "Advanced theoretical scenarios," Elena said, but she wouldn't meet his eyes. "You know how thorough Academy training can be." Doc was scanning one of the alien bodies with her medical equipment. "These creatures show signs of cybernetic enhancement," she reported. "Neural implants, reinforced bone structure, enhanced musculature. This isn't natural evolution. Someone's been upgrading them for combat." 7. Elena went very still. "What kind of implants?" "Hard to tell without a full autopsy, but they look like control mechanisms. Something designed to override natural behavior and impose artificial coordination." Doc paused, studying her scanner readings. "It's almost like they're being remote-controlled by something else." The color drained from Elena's face. "We need to leave. Now." "Why?" Rex demanded. "What aren't you telling us?" Before Elena could answer, an alarm began sounding from somewhere deep within the alien complex. It was a low, throbbing noise that seemed to come from the walls themselves. Emergency lights began flashing in patterns that hurt to look at directly. "Because," Elena said, checking her weapon with practiced efficiency, "if these are Skithari, then they're not the real threat. They're just the advanced scouts." "Advanced scouts for what?" Tank asked, shouldering his heavy weapon. Elena looked at him with eyes that belonged to someone much older than 22. "For the things that made them." The sound of movement echoed from the corridors behind them. Many something moving with coordinated precision through the alien complex. Whatever was coming, it was big, it was fast, and it was heading straight for them. Elena moved to the chamber's main entrance and began setting up a defensive position with movements that spoke of extensive combat experience. "Rex, get your people ready for a fighting retreat. Whatever comes through that door, don't let it touch you. Don't let it get close. And whatever you do, don't look directly at it for more than a few seconds." "Why not?" Chen asked, checking her ammunition supply. Elena's smile was sharp and cold and completely without humor. because the last time I looked directly at one of their masters, I watched it kill 42 people in less than 3 minutes. Rex felt pieces clicking into place in his mind, forming a picture that finally made terrible sense. Kepler 7. Elena nodded, her weapon trained on the corridor entrance. Kepler 7. The sound of approaching movement grew louder, accompanied by something that might have been singing or screaming or both. Whatever had come to Echo 7, whatever had been controlling the Skithari, it was about to arrive. And Rex was beginning to understand why Command had specifically requested Elena for this mission. They weren't just here to investigate alien activity. They were here to face something that only one person in the entire human fleet had encountered before and lived to tell about it. Something that had killed 42 trained diplomats and scientists and left one sweet-natured young woman as the sole survivor. Elena raised her weapon as something vast and impossible began to emerge from the corridor darkness. "Remember," she said, and her voice was steady as stone. "When this is over, I still have cookies back on the ship." Rex almost laughed. In the face of whatever cosmic horror was about to enter their world, Elena Martinez was thinking about cookies. Either she was completely insane, or she was the bravest human being he had ever met. The first tentacle emerged from the corridor, followed by something that made Rex's eyes water just to look at it. Elena opened fire immediately, her shots placed with surgical precision at points that seemed randomly chosen but somehow caused the creature to recoil in what might have been pain. "Target the sensory cluster," she shouted over the sound of weapons fire, the blue-white nodes behind the primary manipulation array. "And whatever you do, don't let it sing to you. Gone. Gone." Rex raised his own weapon and began firing, trusting Elena's expertise even as his mind reeled with the implications of what he was seeing. The sweet-natured cadet who brought cookies and folded origami cranes was fighting cosmic horrors with the confidence of someone who had done this before. And winning. The creature that emerged from the corridor was impossible to describe in words that human minds could process. It flowed like liquid shadow but had substance like crystallized screaming. Tentacles that might have been arms or sensory organs or weapons writhed around a central mass that hurt to perceive directly. When it moved, reality seemed to bend around it, making the chamber's geometry shift in ways that violated every law of physics. Elena's weapon barked repeatedly, each shot aimed with inhuman precision at specific points on the creature's form. Where her bullets struck, the thing recoiled with movements like pain, though Rex wasn't sure if something like that could experience pain in any way humans would recognize. "Mindweaver class," Elena shouted over the sound of weapons fire. "They're telepathic. Don't let it into your thoughts." Too late. Rex felt something cold and alien touching the edges of his consciousness, probing for weaknesses, for fears it could exploit. Images flashed through his mind that weren't his own. Endless voids between distant stars. Civilizations older than human history. Knowledge that could drive a person insane just by existing. Then Elena was there, not physically but mentally. Her presence like a wall of ice between Rex and the creature's mental intrusion. The alien thoughts recoiled from her with something that felt like surprise, then recognition, then something that might have been fear. "No," she said, and her voice seemed to come from inside Rex's head. "You don't get to play with my friends." The psychic contact broke abruptly, leaving Rex gasping and disoriented. Around him, he could see the rest of Bravo Squad recovering from similar experiences, shaking their heads and raising their weapons with grim determination. But Elena hadn't moved. She stood perfectly still in the center of the chamber, her weapon lowered, staring at the alien creature, with an expression Rex had never seen before. It wasn't fear or anger or even determination. It was something colder, more final. It was the look of someone preparing to do something terrible and necessary. "Elena," Rex called out. "What are you doing?" She didn't answer. Instead, she began walking toward the creature with slow, measured steps. The alien thing writhed and twisted, its tentacles lashing out toward her, but they stopped just short of making contact, as if encountering some invisible barrier. "You remember me," Elena said to the creature, her voice conversational, despite the chaos around them. Good. I was hoping you would. The creature's form shifted, becoming more defined, more recognizably threatening. Symbols appeared and disappeared across its surface. Alien writing that seemed to burn itself into the retinas of anyone who looked at it directly. It was trying to communicate, Rex realized. It was trying to tell Elena something. Elena laughed, a sound completely without humor. Yes, I remember too, every single detail. She raised her weapon again, but instead of firing at the creature, she began shooting at specific points around the chamber. The organic machines, the pulsing bioprocessors, the neural networks that connected everything together. Each shot was precisely placed to cause maximum damage to the alien technology. Kepler-7, she said, still firing with mechanical precision. Diplomatic mission to establish peaceful contact with a previously unknown species. 43 humans aboard their ship for negotiations. The creature writhed more frantically as Elena systematically destroyed its equipment. Its mental voice pressed against Rex's consciousness again. But this time, it felt different. Desperate. Afraid. The aliens seemed so friendly at first, Elena continued, reloading her weapon without taking her eyes off the creature. Curious about human culture. Fascinated by our biology. They wanted to study us, they said. Learn from us. Tank moved to support her, his heavy weapon trained on the alien thing. But Elena held up a hand to stop him. They were particularly interested in human neural structure, she said. How our minds work. How we process information. How we form memories. And emotions. And dreams. The creature lunged toward Elena with desperate speed, but again stopped just short of contact. This time, Rex could see why. There was something around Elena. A distortion in the air that made her outline shimmer like heat waves. Whatever was protecting her, it was something the creature couldn't overcome. So they invited the scientific team to participate in some experiments. Elena's voice was getting colder with each word. Just simple neural scans, they said, completely harmless. Just to satisfy their curiosity about human consciousness. She fired 3 more shots, destroying what looked like the creature's communication array. Sparks and alien blood sprayed across the chamber walls. But that wasn't what they really wanted, Elena said. What they really wanted was to download human consciousness. Copy it, study it, use it to understand how to control human minds. Rex felt sick as the implications became clear. They were going to use human minds as blueprints for mental control. Elena nodded, still not taking her eyes off the creature. 43 humans, connected to their neural extraction devices. 43 minds being slowly copied, analyzed, dissected while the bodies were still alive to feel every moment of the process. The creature made a sound like reality tearing. It was backing away from Elena now. Its movements frantic and uncoordinated. Whatever had happened on Kepler-7, the thing remembered it clearly and wanted no part of a repetition. But they made a mistake, Elena said. Her weapon now trained directly on the creature's central mass. They started with the junior xenobiologist because she seemed harmless, sweet-natured, completely non-threatening. She smiled. And Rex felt his blood turn to ice water. It wasn't the bright, cheerful expression he had come to know. It was something sharp and predatory and absolutely merciless. They didn't know that Elena Martinez was born with a rare neurological condition, a 1 in 10 million genetic quirk that makes human neural interface technology completely incompatible with her brain structure. They didn't know that when they tried to download her consciousness, the process would work in reverse. The creature was pressed against the chamber wall now, its tentacles writhing in what looked like panic. It was making sounds that might have been attempts at communication or just expressions of terror. Elena's smile grew wider. Instead of copying her mind, she copied theirs. Every thought, every memory, every piece of knowledge they possessed. 40,000 years of history, technology, and experience. All of it downloaded directly into the brain of a 20-year-old human girl who was just trying to make peaceful contact with an alien species. Rex stared at her in horror. Elena, what did you do? What I had to, she replied simply. When I woke up with their memories in my head, I knew everything. Their plans for humanity, their experiments on other species, their intentions for the galaxy. So I used their own knowledge against them. She gestured around the chamber, at the destroyed equipment and the cowering alien creature. Their technology responds to specific neural patterns. Telepathic commands issued by the right kind of mind with the right kind of knowledge. And thanks to their little experiment, I had exactly the right kind of mind. The pieces finally clicked into place for Rex. You turned their own ship against them. Every system. Every weapon. Every life support function. Elena's voice was matter-of-fact, as if she were discussing the weather. I walked through their ship and systematically shut down everything that was keeping them alive. And when that wasn't enough, I started getting creative. The creature let out a sound like a dying star and began to collapse in on itself. Whatever Elena was doing to it, the process was accelerating. The 42 other humans were already dead, Elena said quietly. The neural extraction process had fried their brains trying to make copies. So, I sat alone in that alien ship, surrounded by the bodies of people I was supposed to protect, with the memories of an entire hostile civilization burning holes in my consciousness. Doc stepped forward, her medical scanner trained on Elena. Your neural readings are off the charts, she reported. I'm detecting patterns that shouldn't be possible in a human brain. Elena nodded. The alien knowledge doesn't go away. It's always there, whispering at the edges of my thoughts. Their memories, their experiences, their understanding of the universe. Sometimes I forget which thoughts are mine and which belong to them. The creature collapsed completely, its form dissolving into component particles that scattered across the chamber floor. Whatever it had been, it was gone now. Destroyed by forces it couldn't comprehend or resist. That's why Command fears me, Elena said, lowering her weapon finally. I have the complete technological and tactical knowledge of one of the most dangerous species in the galaxy. I understand their weaknesses because I understand how they think. I can fight them because I know how they fight. Tank looked around the now quiet chamber. But if you have all their knowledge, couldn't you help us defend against them? Teach us how to fight them? Elena's expression grew sad. That's the problem, Tank. The more I use their knowledge, the more I become like them. Every time I access their memories, I lose a little more of what makes me human. She gestured to the destroyed alien equipment. I could teach humanity how to build technology that would make us the dominant species in the galaxy. I could show you how to control other races, how to extract information from unwilling minds, how to remake entire civilizations to serve human purposes. Unquote. Rex felt a chill of understanding. But that would make us just like them. Exactly. Elena smiled, and this time, it was her real smile. Warm and genuine and heartbreakingly human, so instead, I fold origami cranes and bake cookies and try to remember what it feels like to be a person instead of a living weapon. Chen was studying her scanner readings from the destroyed alien equipment. The energy signatures from this base were connected to a larger network, she reported. There are more installations like this one, scattered across the sector. Elena nodded. The Skithari are establishing forward operating bases for a larger invasion force. If we don't stop them here, they'll have a staging ground for attacks on human colonies. Can we stop them? Rex asked. Elena looked around at the members of Bravo's squad, these people who had accepted her as one of their own without knowing the truth about what she was. We can try, but it won't be easy, and it won't be pleasant. She activated her comm unit and began transmitting data to their ship in orbit. Command, this is Elena Martinez. Priority 1 transmission. I'm uploading tactical data on hostile alien installations in the Epsilon sector. Recommend immediate deployment of heavy assault forces. The response came back within seconds. Confirmed. Martinez, are you compromising operational security? Elena looked at Rex, then at the rest of the squad. They were all watching her with expressions of trust and acceptance, despite everything they had just witnessed. These people had seen her at her most dangerous, and they were still willing to follow her into battle. Negative, she replied. Operational security maintained. But command should be aware that full tactical protocols may be necessary. Rex knew what that meant. Full tactical protocols was military code for allowing Elena to access the complete alien knowledge in her head, to become the weapon that command feared she might become. It meant accepting that the sweet-natured cadet who baked cookies might not survive the process. "Elena," he said quietly, "are you sure about this?" She looked at him with eyes that held 40,000 years of alien memories and 22 years of human experiences, and somehow managed to smile with genuine warmth. "I'm sure. These are my people now. You're my squad. And I'll be damned if I let anything happen to my friends." Doc finished scanning the chamber and packed away her equipment. "How many more installations are we looking at?" Elena closed her eyes, accessing memories that weren't her own. When she opened them again, Rex saw something ancient and terrible looking back at him. 17 more bases in this sector. Each one larger and more heavily defended than this one. "And after that?" Webb asked. Elena's expression grew distant. "After that, their main fleet arrives. 300 ships carrying approximately 2 million Skithari warriors and their support personnel. They plan to use this sector as a staging ground for an assault on Earth." Tank checked his weapon thoughtfully. "So we take out the bases and prevent them from establishing their foothold. That's the idea." Elena shouldered her equipment pack and headed for the chamber exit. "Though I should probably warn you, as we hit more installations, the Skithari are going to adapt their defenses. And I'm going to have to access more of their knowledge to counter their adaptations." Rex followed her toward the exit. "What does that mean for you?" Elena paused in the doorway and looked back at him. For a moment, she looked exactly like the cheerful cadet who had stepped off the transport with a container full of cookies. "It means you might want to enjoy my grandmother's recipes while you can," she said lightly. "Because by the time this mission is over, I might not remember how to bake." They emerged from the alien complex into Echo 7's afternoon sunlight. The forest around them looked peaceful and normal, as if cosmic horrors had never existed here. Elena pulled out a piece of paper and began folding it into another crane with quick, precise movements. "Why do you do that?" Doc asked, watching her work. Elena considered the question seriously. "Because every time I fold a crane, I'm proving to myself that I can still create something beautiful. That I can still choose to be human, instead of whatever else I might become." She finished the crane and handed it to Doc. "My grandmother used to say that as long as you can create beauty in the world, you haven't lost your soul." Rex watched her distribute origami cranes to the rest of the squad, saw the way Tank carefully tucked his into a secure pocket, noticed how Chen smiled when she received hers. Elena Martinez might be carrying the memories of an ancient alien civilization in her head, but she was still fundamentally, recognizably human. Their comm units crackled with an incoming transmission from Fleet Command. "Bravo, Squad. This is Admiral Chen. Priority reinforcement package is en route to your position. ETA 6 hours. Maintain current position and prepare for extended operation." Elena nodded to herself, as if this was exactly what she had expected. "They're sending the Special Operations Forces," she said. "The ones trained specifically for anti-alien warfare." "How do you know that?" Rex asked. Elena's smile was sad but genuine. "Because that's what I recommended when I transmitted my report, and because those forces were specifically trained based on data from the Kepler-7 incident." Rex stared at her. "You mean they've been preparing for this since your first encounter? They've been preparing for the possibility that someday, someone would need to face these aliens again," Elena corrected. "They just never expected that someone to be the same person who survived the first encounter." Night was falling over Echo 7, painting the alien sky in shades of purple and gold that reminded Rex of Earth sunsets. Elena sat on a fallen log and pulled out her ration pack, sharing her dessert supplements with the rest of the squad, just as she had done every evening since joining them. "Elena," he said carefully, "what happens after we finish this mission? After we stop the invasion?" She was quiet for a long time, folding another piece of paper into a complex geometric shape that might have been a flower or a star. "I don't know," she admitted finally. Command will probably want to debrief me extensively. They'll want access to all the alien knowledge in my head. And then? Elena looked up at the alien stars shining in Echo 7's sky. And then I suppose we find out whether Elena Martinez can live with being humanity's weapon against the dark, or whether the dark wins and turns her into something else entirely. Rex wanted to say something encouraging, something that would reassure her that everything would be fine, but he had seen what she was capable of, had witnessed the cold, terrible efficiency with which she could destroy their enemies. He knew that the cheerful, cookie-baking cadet might be living on borrowed time, that each battle brought her closer to becoming something that was no longer recognizably human. Instead, he accepted the origami flower she offered him and tucked it carefully into his gear pack. "For what it's worth," he said, "I'm glad you're on our side." Elena laughed, and the sound was pure and human, and completely without the alien harmonics that sometimes crept into her voice when she accessed their memories. "Me too, Sergeant. Me too." Above them, the stars wheeled in their ancient patterns, indifferent to the small drama playing out on the planet below. Tomorrow would bring new battles, new horrors, and new tests of Elena Martinez's humanity. But tonight, she sat with her squad and shared cookies and folded paper cranes, holding on to the simple human pleasures that defined who she chose to be. And if sometimes she stared into the darkness with eyes that reflected knowledge no human should possess, well, her squad mates pretended not to notice, because Elena Martinez might be humanity's most dangerous weapon, but she was also their friend, and friends didn't let friends face their demons alone. Even when those demons were the memories of an alien species that had tried to enslave the human mind and learned, too late, that some minds were too stubborn to break and too human to surrender. The last thing Rex remembered before falling asleep was the sound of Elena humming a lullaby his mother had sung to him as a child. And despite everything he had learned about her true nature, despite the cosmic horrors they would face tomorrow, that simple human melody made everything seem like it might just be okay. After all, anyone who could remember lullabies and grandmother's cookie recipes after downloading the memories of a hostile alien civilization couldn't be entirely lost to the darkness, could she?